I'm Alan Foreman. I'm Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Thoroughbred Horsemen Association. The Thoroughbred Horsemen Association is an umbrella organization of state horsemen's organizations, primarily in the Mid-Atlantic and the Midwest. We represent the horsemen who race in New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Illinois.
And the Racing Medication Testing Consortium.
The Racing Medication and Testing Consortium is the racing industry's drug testing and research arm. It is a member-based organization. All of the major groups in racing, both thoroughbred, standardbred, quarter horse racing, and we are charged with the responsibility of drug testing and research, initiatives for drug testing, enhancing drug testing in this country, and in identifying drugs and medications that are important to racing and are inimical to racing, that is, would damage the integrity of the sport. I've been facilitating meetings of the regulators in the Mid-Atlantic states for probably more than 15 years. And among the initiatives that we deal with on a regional basis is medication. And we have been working for years with, not only within the region, but within the RMTC, looking at potential ways for the region to work uniformly. It makes infinite sense to do that in the Mid-Atlantic region because the largest concentration of racing in the United States is in the Mid-Atlantic. From New York to Virginia, at any given time, more than 18 racetracks may be operating on a given day. And we have horses and horsemen moving interstate within the region. Some are racing in more than one state on a daily basis, so that the uniformity of rules and regulations in racing in a state-sanctioned and state-controlled business is important to the people who race in this region. And for years, they have been asking us to develop model uniform rules so that everyone is playing by the same set of rules, and the horsemen know what those rules are as they travel from state to state. The participating states in the Mid-Atlantic Compact that we have recently developed are New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, West Virginia. 8 major racing states, and combined they comprise more than 60% of the daily national handle on a daily basis. In order to simplify our existing medication system, which classifies drugs by their ability to affect the performance of a horse, and our penalty guidelines, which are tied within that framework, we have simplified the system into 2 categories of drugs, as you've indicated, the controlled therapeutic medications, and then those substances that we deem to be prohibited and should not be present in a racehorse at any time on race day. With respect to the 24 controlled therapeutic medications, these are medications that are necessary for the treatment of illness or injury in the horse on a daily basis, and they are recognized by the scientific experts as those substances that are necessary for the welfare of the animal. We have taken those 24 drugs, which comprise a number of different areas of medications, and we are providing withdrawal time guidance to the horsemen, and we are also providing uniform testing thresholds for the drug testing laboratories so that the horsemen will know how to use these drugs properly to avoid positive tests, will protect the betting public, and the laboratories will be testing on a uniform basis so that a positive test in one jurisdiction is the same in another jurisdiction, and we're not operating under different standards. Well, you've identified 2 classes of drugs that are necessary for the treatment of illness or injury in the horse and are recognized as therapeutic drugs. They have become drugs of abuse. For example, clenbuterol. Clenbuterol is widely recognized as an effective therapy for horses that develop obstructive airway disease. It is a bronchodilator, and quite frankly, it's a medication that was welcomed by the industry for that illness in the horse. But it became a drug of abuse, and horsemen began using it on a far more regular basis. Some were using it on a daily basis. Through our new recommendations, clenbuterol may not be administered to a horse at least 14 days prior to a race, that will allow the drug to completely clear the horse's system and in a manner that it will not affect the performance of the horse, and also remove the drug as a drug of abuse. With respect to the corticosteroids, we've learned in the past couple years that the abusive use of corticosteroids is having a damaging effect on the joints into which those medications are injected. They are compromising the safety and welfare of the animal, and as we've determined, they are contributing to some of the breakdowns that we are experiencing. And so with our new recommendations, we are withdrawing the use of the corticosteroids in a more significant way that allows them to be used for a therapeutic purpose, but prevents them from being abused, compromising the examination of the horses pre-race by the regulatory veterinarians, and is allowing these drugs to be used in a more safe fashion. And they fall into two areas. The intra-articular corticosteroids, which are the steroids that are injected directly into the joint, and the systemic corticosteroids that are taken orally. With respect to the intra-articular corticosteroids, the most potent of those, depomedrol or methylprednisolone acetate, is being subjected to a recommended 21-day withdrawal time. Quite frankly, the THA is going to recommend to its members that this drug not be used. But for those veterinarians and horsemen who feel that the drug is necessary, it will have a 21-day withdrawal time attached to it. With respect to the other intra-articulars, those that are injected into the joint, the recommendation and the requirement will be a withdrawal time of 7 days. With respect to the systemic corticosteroids, those that are taken orally, such as dexamethasone, the recommended withdrawal time will be 72 hours. These are significant enhancements for the safety and welfare of the animal, while recognizing that these are drugs that have a therapeutic purpose that may be necessary in the treatment of illness or injury in the horse, and we preserve their use for therapeutic purposes. One of the most dramatic advances that we have made in drug testing in the United States has occurred over the past 4 years. I had spoken at the Jockey Club Roundtable some 4 years ago and called for an overhaul of our drug testing system in the United States, which would require accreditation of our laboratories, enhanced funding, upgrades of equipment, uniform testing standards, a more effective quality assurance program for the industry, and those measures that we could enact that would enhance the ability of the drug testers, who are our biggest deterrent in the sport, to find illicit use of drugs and medications in our sport. The good news is that over the past 2 years, we have consolidated our drug testing laboratories from 18 to 10, and with the development by the industry of the most stringent accreditation program and code of standards in any sport in the world, the RMTC code, or Racing Medication Testing Consortium Code of Standards, we now have 8 of our laboratories, including all in the Mid-Atlantic and those who are participating in the compact, who have submitted to RMTC code accreditation. And when they receive that accreditation, they will have been accredited to the most stringent program in the world. We are encouraging our other laboratories to participate in this program. They also will be participating in the industry's first uniform external quality assurance program, a program where third-party assessors will be assessing our laboratories to ensure on a yearly basis that our laboratories are capable of doing what we say they can do and to meet the accreditation standards. We're upgrading equipment using the most sophisticated technology that's available for drug testing and requiring our laboratories to have that technology. And coupled with that, we have a requirement of a frozen sample program where samples that are collected from horses in races are preserved so that in the future, if we have to look back to see whether through emerging threats or new technologies and our ability to detect illicit drugs are determined, we can look back at frozen samples to see whether in fact those drugs are present in those samples. Again, this is a very significant deterrent factor. Combined with our drug testing system, that I think recognizes that racing has the best integrity as far as medication and drug use of any sport in the world. In order for us to have an effective penalty program, one which many have called for, are those who believe that we are not capable of identifying and rooting out those who are what we call the multiple offenders, those who commit multiple medication offenses, because obviously the image it creates for the sport. In order to accomplish that, we had to create the category system of the therapeutic, controlled substances, and the prohibited substances. We will now be, over the course of the next few months, implementing a new penalty guideline system which identifies the repeat offenders. And by doing so, we hope to root those people out of the sport or prevent that from occurring in the future. The use of the new controlled therapeutic system that we're developing, we think will reduce the number of positive tests that we have in the industry, which are very few in relation to the number of samples that we test every year. But most of the violations that we have occur in that therapeutic category. But for those who are repeat offenders, we need to identify them, and we're doing it in a system that's very similar to the traffic court system that we all understand with the motor vehicle system, and that is that if you get a medication violation, certain points will attach to that violation, and when you reach the threshold of point violations that would be provided for in the system, the horseman will incur a significant additional penalty in addition to the underlying penalties. There is an ongoing system, whether it's through the RMTC, the RCI, or this new system that we're going to be implementing, where we're actually going to be able to better track conduct, not only to determine whether or not the new system that we have implemented is working and what changes need to be made to the new system, but we'll be constantly monitoring the therapeutic controlled substance category to see whether there are substances that we need to add to the list or need to remove from the list. In addition, we'll be creating a national database in which we will be able to track a lot of this information, and there also will be a system in place not different from what we're doing right now, where we are tracking and looking at and asking our laboratories to test for and research for emerging substances that may be a threat to the integrity of our sport. This program will be implemented hopefully January 1, 2014. It certainly will be in the Mid-Atlantic region, but we believe that this is going to go beyond the Mid-Atlantic region and become a national program. It's good for the entire industry. For the horsemen who adjust and the veterinarians who adjust to the new system of controlled therapeutic medications, if they work within that category, using those drugs exclusively, and they follow the guidelines that we have provided to them, we think that we will significantly reduce, if not eliminate, the number of positive tests we have. And for those horsemen that want to use drugs in that category, and they're certainly free to do so, they need to be very judicious about it and use excess caution, because if they receive a positive test for those substances that are not in the 24 drug controlled therapeutic substance category, they will suffer more severe penalties, and obviously from a public relations standpoint, they will be identified as those who have used a drug that is not permitted in racing. So we think that's a benefit to the horsemen, the veterinarians, certainly to the betting public, which may have concerns about the integrity of our sport, and it's going to make the work of the regulators much easier because we have provided the guidance that the horsemen need. And I think it also helps us to help the public understand that our horses, for their benefit and for their welfare, are treated with therapeutic substances. They're done so in a responsible fashion. They're done so in a heavily regulated fashion. And the good news is, beginning January 1, 2014, they're going to be regulated in a uniform basis. Everyone's going to be treated the same. And I think that's a benefit to the entire industry. Racing is a state-sanctioned, state-controlled business, which makes uniformity difficult because it allows an individual state that does not want to participate on a uniform basis to do so. Nonetheless, I believe that there is a universal desire and commitment right now to work uniformly. It makes infinite sense in the Mid-Atlantic region. I think that there is an understanding in the Mid-Atlantic that we are going to work together collectively, that we're going to work on a uniform basis. This is the first major step to do so. And I believe by doing so in the Mid-Atlantic, we set the stage for the rest of the United States to follow suit. And I'm very confident that that's going to happen. There are a number of states beyond the Mid-Atlantic that are considering the Mid-Atlantic Compact at this time. I'm very confident that major states such as California, Kentucky, Minnesota, Texas, Illinois will be joining the program shortly. And I think as they join the program, it will be the catalyst for the other states that have not yet committed but are looking at the program. And I think that every racing jurisdiction in the United States is looking at and discussing this program right now. And I'm confident that most, if not all, of the jurisdictions in the United States will join this program.
Now, what steps will be taken to assist the other states in passing these regulations?
We are providing whatever information is necessary. We're meeting with those jurisdictions. We're meeting with the regulators. We're meeting with the Horsemen to make sure they understand the program and why it has been embraced by the Horsemen and the regulators in the Mid-Atlantic region. And we will meet with them. We will encourage them. And I think that as they see this groundswell, and I think the optimism in the industry that this is a positive step, that they will be moving over the next several months to join with the program. I think the only obstacles that we basically face are inertia, the unwillingness of states to move forward because they're satisfied with the way business is being done right now. Quite frankly, I don't think anybody is satisfied, and they shouldn't be satisfied, and we have a great opportunity here with the advances that we've made and the new systemic structure that we have to really change the paradigm for medication use and abuse in this country. Get behind it, encourage state racing commissions to join in this program. We're talking to horsemen, we're talking to breeders, we're talking to jockeys, we're talking to fans, we're talking to anyone in this sport who cares about what we're doing. This is a major paradigm shift for racing, probably the most significant shift in the past 30 years. It's one that deserves support, it's good for the industry, and we need everyone to get behind it and encourage the regulators, who are the ones who need to move this program. They need to know that there is support within the industry for accomplishing this program.